everyone, this is Anna from Expat Realty, and today I'm here to talk to you about the immigration changes that happened in Portugal this past few weeks. The proposal was made in the 20 or 16, somewhere in the mid of June, and it is concerning a lot of people. So I'm here to provide some clarification. For those of you who do not know, I am Anna Karamush. I am the owner of Expat Realty. Expat Realty is a relocation and investment agency that helps expats move to Portugal in a sustainable way, focusing on lifestyle. We help people find the best location and the best property or the best rental. We work with both rentals and purchases. For their own personal needs, our services are always very tailored, and our goal is to help both sides, to help expats make informed decisions and make a good transition and have a good experience on their move to Portugal, and help Portuguese people by not inflating the prices, which is of course very important for us as a fully Portuguese team. So, going into today's topic about the immigration changes that have been concerning a lot of people. So I'm going to start by going over the proposed changes. So these changes were proposed about 3 weeks ago. And in the typical way of the lovely Portuguese government, they take years and years to make any changes, but when they finally do, they want to make them yesterday. So now everyone is panicking. And this is not the first time that has happened, but we'll go over that. I did wait on purpose a few weeks to make this video to make sure I had all the information and no major changes happened, as it is fairly typical here in Portugal that the government announces things and then backtracks it. So I do believe there's still a few things that are very much on a gray area, and I'm going to go over that. But for now, I'm going to explain the current situation and the current proposition. So the biggest change that is causing a lot of panic is that they're proposing to change the time to obtain citizenship from 5 years to 10 years. And also for the Portuguese-speaking countries, it would be 7 years. This is, of course, creating a lot of discontent, and it would, as it would apply to people that are already in the middle of the process. There are doubts regarding this, but I'll go over this in a bit. So the second major change would be limitation to work visas and what is commonly known as demonstração de interesse, which is basically kind of a foot-in kind of process that was allowed here in Portugal, that basically you did something called a demonstração de interesse, saying that you are sorting things out in order to become a resident or have your proper visa taken care of, and would give some sort of justification, sometimes that you were looking for a job or that you are in the middle of getting permission for university or whatever. So basically this demonstração de interesse could be used by anyone and anything to stay in Portugal without a proper visa, and it's now being limited. So the government is saying that they will no longer allow this, only for highly qualified individuals that would be looking for Portugal to work, and they would have to prove that they are highly qualified and so on, and they would still be able to apply for this demonstração de interesse. So on a personal comment, I do think this makes perfect sense. We kind of have been making things way too easy in that regard. The demonstração de interesse really was for anyone and anything, and it wasn't sustainable really. So I do think this is a positive change, and it won't affect you if you're already taking care of the proper process. This basically was a loophole for people that didn't have their visa properly sorted out to stay in Portugal. So this loophole will cease to exist, which I think it's a very good thing. So The other thing is that a new border police that will be a sub-branch of PSP is going to be instated, and this new border police is also going to work in partnership with GNR, which is our traffic police. So I do think this makes sense. That now it's a matter of actually creating it and staffing it, which has been an issue here in Portugal. As we all know, public services tend to be slow and tend to be very slow hiring. So let's see how that goes. The only thing about this change on the duplication period for citizenship, and that it was proposed that the time for citizenship will only start counting once the person has the residence permit, and time outside of Portugal will be excluded. I do think this second part makes some sense. It's going to be very hard to regulate, to be honest, because, well, with the new border patrol or anything, maybe they will implement proper policies and proper exchange and information in the airports. But other than that, if you just cross the border to Spain, no one can control that. But overall, I do think this can make sense. The problem is the waiting until your residence permit is emitted, because SAF, not SAF, it's now IMA, is extremely understaffed. So we already have a ridiculous amount of pending processes in all kinds of visas and nationality, because it is estimated IMA needs about, I think it was 1,600 more employees than it has. And the same thing for the registries. It's estimated, I think it was about 600 more employees are needed, and new admissions were made. I think it was 250 new posts were created, and only half of them filled. So we have a clear understaffing problem on both registers and IMA, and so the permits tend to be very, very late, and that is not at all at fault for those who are requesting it. They say they are going to create a new online system that's going to expedite the renewal and emission of these permits. I do hope it works, but I am not too hopeful, because there is kind of a track record here in Portugal of public services spending a ridiculous amount of money on software that doesn't work properly. So let's see how that goes. I very much understand the frustration in this case, because, like I said, I do not think that these immigrants should be blamed for the incompetence of our own services. And therefore, I do believe that this measure is not that good because of the lack of efficiency of the services. If the services did work properly, I would have nothing against it. So, another thing that is proposed to be implemented is a higher Portuguese proficiency level requisition on the emission of nationality, which I fully agree. I mean, if you're going to be a Portuguese citizen, you do have to speak Portuguese properly, or you should have to speak Portuguese properly. I see absolutely nothing wrong with it. Yes, Portuguese is a hard language, but you don't really need to be a Portuguese citizen to have basically almost all the rights residing here. So I do think citizenship should be restricted. So now going to the changes that I actually do not really agree with, and I'm also not particularly sure they will actually be approved and will be going through on the Constitution. Actually, before that, there's another thing that was changed and proposed, and that is that immigrants that commit crimes with more than 30 days sentencing within the first 5 years of getting their citizenship will have their citizenship revoked, which I fully agree with. I mean, if you come to our country to commit crimes, you shouldn't be a citizen, and you shouldn't even be in our country in the first place. There is, however, some lawyers saying this may be unconstitutional to take citizenship back and so on. I do think this is one of those cases of exchequer's protection. I mean, it's actually very, very hard to be condemned here in Portugal. The legal system works terribly. So if you actually do get sentenced, it's probably for a very, very good reason. And I think it's a very good thing that the citizenship would be revoked in those cases. But moving on to the things that may be more on a gray area and harder to approve and I don't actually agree with. And those are the changes on the family reunification. So if you watched my discussion last week with Carl Munson, I do believe these changes are proposed based on the unchecked amount of people that are being able to come into Portugal many times because, for example, there is a huge issue with the maternities being completely overtaken by foreigners giving birth in Portugal and making use of our public system, and then those children get Portuguese nationality and the parents can be naturalized because of that. And it's one of those loopholes that is being giving a lot of problems both to the health system and to the immigration itself, so it does need to be somehow fixed. However, I do not believe that the way it is proposed to be fixed is a good solution. So what the government is proposing is that 2 years of residence are required before the reunion can be made. Only minors would be allowed on this reunion. There would be higher demands to prove adequate living conditions, and it would be mandatory to go through integration programs. I do agree with the higher demands to prove adequate living conditions and mandatory integration programs. However, the 2 years residency and only minors allowed, I don't even think this is constitutional, because people have the right to their own family, and it makes absolutely no sense that someone would come to Portugal to live and work and leave their spouse and children behind. And I don't think this measure will be able to go through because of the going against the basic human right of family. But we will see how this goes. As of last Friday, the 4th of July, most of these programs were approved in Parliament. They still need to be reviewed by the government. They were approved in Parliament with only 2 minor parties voting against them. The Chega party, our far-right party, is making a lot of noise about especially the family reunification. They actually wanted to fully prohibit family reunification, which is, once again, completely unconstitutional. Even the current proposal, I still believe it's unconstitutional, but we will see how things go. I do think most of the others will probably go through, and it's going to be a tricky thing to do the transition between the old measures and the new measures. As I mentioned in the beginning, Portugal does have this tendency of letting things be for way too long, and when they finally do something about it, they want to do it for yesterday. And they are trying to make the measures effective with retroactive effects. They won't be able to. This is, once again, unconstitutional. We've been over this on the golden visa problems 2 years ago. It was exactly the same thing. They wanted to make the retrograde effect, and they can't. It's highly illegal, highly unconstitutional, and once again, it's not going to happen this time. There's probably going to be a period for people to regulate their situation, and it's going to be an absolute mess because of the lack of staffing in the immigration services. So, going a bit into context over the current situation on immigration, there have actually been 1.5 million citizenship requests over the last 5 years in Portugal. So 5 years ago, we had about 10 million population. So we are talking about almost 20% of our total population in citizenship requests. So you can see this is not at all sustainable. And yes, something had to be done about it. Now, the question is also, what exactly are these requests? And people have been doing a lot of research, and the numbers have been coming up mostly in the past week, and that's also why I waited a bit to make this video. But the requests in nationality went up very drastically from 2022 on, and actually the vast majority of them were approved, but about 700,000 are pending. So we have already 700,000 pending requests of citizenship, and we're going to have a huge flow of them now. So I have no idea how Portugal is going to handle all of this, because it's not going to be sustainable. And to be honest, I do not think that this situation will affect the majority of my clients or the majority of immigrants. The big difference between having nationality and having a residence permit, you actually get most of the same rights as citizens with a residence permit, with the difference that you cannot vote on national elections, you do not have a passport, and you do not have the free circulations of citizens inherent to European Union citizens. So what happens is most of these people that are looking for naturalization through the residence time, which are actually not the majority of requests, according to the numbers I've seen, about 27 of them are through naturalization, and most of them are actually for descendants and children of people living abroad and so on and so forth, which is of course not going to change. And actually about 40% of the emitted nationalities on the past year was to Israeli citizens, and about 25% was to Brazilians. So we are seeing here that over 60%, I would say probably about 70% of these people that are asking nationality by the residence time are just after the European Union rights of free move of citizens and the Portuguese passport. Most of the European Union clients I have, they are not at all concerned with getting nationality. Even most of my clients, to be honest, they are not very concerned about having nationality unless they are descendants of Portuguese. And it can definitely be a practical thing when it comes to bureaucracy, as you do not have to go through the visa processes, you do not have to give any justifications when you enter or leave the country or spend more time outside. So it's practical from a bureaucratic perspective, but I definitely don't think Portugal should be issuing nationalities left and right, especially because the nationality request, it only requests to A2 level of Portuguese. That's, people don't even speak Portuguese. I do think this needs to be restricted, and the current situation is not sustainable, and I do not believe it will affect the vast majority of my clients, because this will affect mostly the people who are looking for passports and free circulation of citizens in the European Union. So, like I said, you will probably have to go a bit more through the bureaucracies to get the visas and so on, but other than that, it won't affect people too drastically, except for the family reunification measures, which I once again do not believe are going to go forward, as they are likely very unconstitutional. So let's see how this moves. But this is my update on the situation. A lot of it is also my personal opinion, as you noticed. So I hope that this was helpful. I did try to provide all the information also about the current situation as the facts are. So do let me know your opinions in the comments, and if you want to see a bit more of the discussion in my personal opinion, you can also check my conversation with Carl from last week that was done live on Fridays. And I hope this is helpful. We are here every week with information about Portugal cities, Portugal policies, and advice for those looking to live to Portugal. So if you find these useful, do subscribe to our channel. And you can also find a lot of useful information on our blog in www.savvycatrealty.com. And you can also contact us directly at contact@savvycatrealty.com if you have any specific queries. So I hope that this was helpful, and I hope to see you all next week.